They don't have wings. All right? Just to let you know. It's from the past. It's from the history where God thought, well, we got a very simple kind of crowd of people here. So if they look like that, how can these be flying around? So they adopted the idea of the bird, which have wings. That made a bit more sense to people. So, but they don't actually have wings. And this part here, this is a prayer energy. It looks like a puff of cotton wool, like a very soft energy. And angels, this was in the prayer room in Champyong. In the beginning, they had a lot more angels stood around, but now there's not so many angels in there. There's more your own blessed ancestors. They're the ones that are more interested in you. You have to remember the angels have nothing to do with you, really. They don't know you personally. So they only help because Daimonim asked them to help. But your blessed ancestors have a vested interest in knowing you and helping you because you're a part of their blood lineage. So if you ever want any help, many people wrote to Daimonim and said, can you send a few angels to help? And then she would say, well, do you have any blessed ancestors? And these are the ones to call on, not angels anymore. Yeah. So when we pray, I'm sure when in your group, your prayer group, if you were open spiritually, you would see many of these. You're praying and actually the spirit comes out of you and stays in you and supports you to keep a fine, resonant prayer. And you will find that one of these are either a nun or a monk. In the past, you see, there wasn't really many places of education. So like in the 12th century, 13th, 14th century, there was these monasteries. These were the educational places. Everybody else worked on the fields or things. And if you wanted to go to be educated, you would go to a monastery or be a part of a monk or go to one of their sessions. They were the educators to learn to read and write. So this is why we have many with us, because we don't inherit the religion from them, their particular faith, but we inherit their passion and desire to want to serve God and help the Messiah. Yeah, and so this is a brother. He's a very prayerful brother. He looks like a monk, and he attracted them all. Yeah, he's very interesting person. Yeah, this is my wife. That's Petra there, who's teaching, trying to spread the word as per normal. But she looks completely different. Like I said, she's very thin. She's thin. She had running shoes on, sport shoes, underneath her holy gown. And, because she's very active. She's very active. I think if Father knew that she would not get sick, I wouldn't be matched to her. Because I'm not a very fast person, really. I'm a slow person. But I have somehow the ancestry to look after people. So he knew her future, how it would be. I think that's why we came together. Another person, Rosie Beezer, you might know her. She's Austrian. But she had a lot of Catholic. She went to Catholic school. And she has a certain character with her, which is very kind of a bit narrow in everything. And I saw with her lots of Catholic ancestors with her. This is Mervyn. Rosvita. Rosvita, this is Merv. He has a shepherd with him. Somebody who is Irish, who gather up the sheep in the field. He's very laid back and very calm. Very, very focused guy. Wonderful. Yeah. Loves everybody. Yeah. And he'd do anything for you. He'd give his life for you. No problem. Well, like we all would, Of course, we'd think about it a bit first, But no, lovely couple. So many times I see walking around in town different spirits who lived maybe a generation before the town was built. Also, the buildings that I see these spirits in, these, may be slightly different from the real ones. Often I've seen labourers building a motorway on the left side. When I'm driving along, they're all kind of spirits digging away, you know. Fascinating, really. Yeah. Also, when I'm driving, when I came by plane, when I came on the train, Petra was sat by me, and she was going, "Yeah, go on, you can do it, you can do it." Because I'm always nervous before I do a talk, you know, like most people are. I say, "Well, look, what are you nervous about? You know, you've done so many of them." I'm saying, "Yeah, I know. Yeah." So she's as plain as I'm looking at you, and she sat there. But of course, if she sits on your sandwiches, nothing happens, which is good. Yeah. So, but I talk with her a lot. I'll probably be seeing her tonight. You know, she'll come. A few people come from Chomkyong because they also support what I'm trying to do. But there has been a few talks where Damon him actually stood in the corner of the room and was very happy with what I'm trying to do. Chomkyong don't know me very well, but all the pictures I drew are in Chomkyong, and they've used them for a few of their workshops to explain a bit more clear, you know. But I'm not, because some people think I'm an ambassador for Chomkyong, or I'm trying to promote Chomkyong, but I'm not. All I'm trying to do is show what happens there, but I'm not trying to push people to go there, you know. So it's a bit different. So I had to change a few people's mind. I'm not an ambassador. I'm not representing. You know, I'm an independent. I don't think people know how to put me, really. I've got no department. Nobody knows what to do with me, really. So I'm freelance. Yeah. But as long as I can help people do the providence we're in, if it helps at all, give people a bit more understanding. That's all that's important. So evil, resentful spirits here. So this was just a person who was pretty much possessed. When you're struggling very much with any problems, everything you're seeing here is happening in your head. But I couldn't do it like that, so I had to put it outside of the person. And this person had this ancestor who lived around the 12th, 13th, 14th century, and he was a tax collector, and he collected money from the poor people that lived in the village that had not very much. Very similar to the Robin Hood story, you know. And many of the people died, and they became resentful to this person. So when this person entered the spirit world, he was trapped in a room with no windows, no door. He was almost like boxed in, and he was chained to a golden seat made of gold, and all these crosses around him, and a chain around his neck. And all of these negative spirits here, these resentful spirits of the people who died, torment him. And all of this was in his head, because he was a descendant of this ancestor here. And that's why people get tormented by not their own problem. One of the revelations for people is when they realize that all of the struggle they're going through is not their own, is actually caused here, somewhere else. That gives them a lot of peace of mind. It doesn't get rid of the problem, but it helps them to realize something. So this is the kind of thing I would do as a reading. I would do a reading. If you had a problem that you were feeling tormented or something, I would try and find out who it was doing it and explain it to you. This kind of thing. So that person came, figured out I could see all this, and then I sorted out who was doing what in his spirit. And there was lots of resentment spirits here. This is more religious side. He was very claustrophobic, didn't like small places, but he could also see the high spirit realm, like the Chono Gut realm, far off in the distance. And so I just asked him to study, just to read some principle, very basic principles, because I'm not a healer, you see. I'm a seer more. I can see, you know, but I don't really heal like that, you know. I think this is the difference. And so I asked him to study. So I am promoting more the principle and the energy and the power behind this. And so then this what happened. And this is this kind of energy I see coming down on your heads and your head. This kind of pillar of bright energy is a channel straight into the spirit world. And so he cleared out his spirit very, very quickly after about 2 or 3 days. And it really helped him a lot. This is another example of a grandfather. Petro had migraine, headache, very, 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 very bad head for several days. And she wasn't well. She was a sick person anyway, so I thought I'd better have a look and see what's going on. And I saw one grandfather sat in her. Now, he's like one of the great grandfathers she had, but he was quite a selfish person. In the war, he kept lots of food to himself. He wouldn't share very much. So he had a little bit of a kind of problem there. But he came and sat in Petra, and that caused a lot of headache. So I asked her to also just study some principle or something positive from our movement. And this channel opened here, and lots of ancestors come through. Now this picture here, like that, is what I saw in this room. They're like coming through. And they're all kind of in this room like this, but not. And there's many, because you can get so many ancestors on the top of a pinhead. Is incredibly dimensional difference. So often the wall, this wall here opens and right around, and I can see right into the distance of loads of ancestors here. Yeah. So that's what happened. Then he moved away. He moved out. Yeah. This is a very typical situation which we have now, where people liberate. This person liberates and blesses ancestors, and he has many, but he doesn't change his own attitude. He doesn't change himself to try and live a better way. And so he attracts to him different spirits who died with different attitudes to him. All right, like he has just say he's a bit of a negative person or don't like to do certain things, then he can attract spirits who think the same and make it stronger that he's negative. And because you have that, because you don't try and change yourself and make yourself a little bit better, by a bit more positive, by maybe studying a bit more or coming to Sunday services sometimes and picking up a good atmosphere or doing some prayer conditions or something where you can feel you're going to try and develop something. As soon as you start meeting a good level by doing a prayer condition or a group prayer and you feel very in it, all of your ancestors here can blend into your spirit. You've removed all these things here, so you can blend in. If you don't change anything around you, you will find that when you come back from a liberation or blessing or an Ansu session, you feel as if nothing happened, nothing changed. You've actually let all of your ancestors and these resentful spirits out of prison or out of your body, but you still feel the same because you've got these habits. There's a habit of thinking the same way. But you have to remember that when you do change and you do improve yourself, you won't always go back to how you were because the ancestors have changed. So it means you actually have nothing in there to reinforce it anymore. So as long as you make effort to change, you will improve. There's nothing to pull you back. This is why the liberation and blessing is so important, because if you can't liberate or bless ancestors, you always get pulled back into the old way of thinking because they want to connect to you with those old ideas. Very, very logical, really, very simple, So let's try another one. Okay, you're trying to take a picture of it. I want to change that now, yeah? And so this is also a very simple explanation. This is just, say, the center leader. And having a meeting today, so we want milk. Just say a typical example, we want some milk because everybody needs coffee, although I don't need milk, but other people might. So then you have no milk in your thing. So you say to, say, Robert, you know, he's picking me up. Can you pick up the milk on the way? Yeah. So you say, oh, yeah, okay. I can do that. So you get back to the center, and I'm here, and you say, oh, Robert, where's the milk then? Oh, yeah, the milk. Forgot the milk, didn't I? I forgot it. So, yeah, and there's no shops around very well. And so what happens to you, yeah, this happens. You get suddenly all this negative energy towards him, all right? So depending on how well your relationship is, you, the person who gave the instruction, usually the husband or the wife, take it more personal. If it was somebody else, it's more easy. But if a couple has a problem, it's really about a personal thing, because they know that you're going to be living with them forever, yeah, and there's no escape. And so if another member didn't bring milk, you can easily forgive them somehow. But if it's the husband or the wife, oh my God, that's death on wheels, you know. So this is what happens. And so if you suddenly become like that, and you start to get really influenced, you attract. It's nothing to do with your ancestors. You attract from all the different realms in the spirit world. All this negative energy just comes and sticks on you, just like flies on a light. Very, very strong. So if you cannot forgive after, say, a day or two, this happens. It really starts to work into you, yeah? And you could almost become really not very nice at all, you know? And when you're one of your children comes along, you ask your children, can you go in the kitchen to get something for me? Because your mother's in there. I don't want, you know. Yeah, yes, Daddy, I'll go in and get it for you, you know. And because you can feel all that. You can feel all that nastiness. And so usually what happens in that situation is usually you get a phone call from someone, completely out of the blue, or somebody knocks on your door, and then they come. And as soon as they meet this person, like the wife, you know, they say, ooh, what happened to you today? You know, not very good. And then you might say, oh, yeah, my husband, he didn't bring any milk, you know. God, he destroyed the day. He destroyed this day. I don't know what to do with him. He's always, you know. And then so this friend says, gosh, it's only milk, you know. It's only milk, yeah. And you got to live here. He lives here. Yeah, so you have to do something. You have to forgive him. And then it's kind of like this, like this, like this. You see, in this, because we're in this world, we can do that because we have all these different levels all living in the same world, on the same plane. Whereas if that happened in the spirit world, that would be trapped, and you would be with like that thinking forever, because nobody could inspire you to change. You would be people who all like this. Yeah. So it depends how you die. This is why people like to be forgiving or forgive someone before they pass away, because they don't want to get trapped with all this negative energy. Yeah? And so what you try and do then, you say, okay, then yeah, I understand. I agree with what you're telling me. I better try and do something. So I'll make him maybe a cup of tea, or make him a coffee, make him a nice meal. And so you try and do something. You say, okay, I'll do your washing then. You know, I'll do it for you. So you do something positive, and this is what happens. Bing. That's what happens. Straight away, you push out all the negative energy, because none of these are yours. All of these are from around the spirit realm. Any part of the spirit, the lowest, everywhere. From any dimension, they can come and join and blend with you. And you can start with a few, and after a very short time, you can have 1,000. After a few more hours, you got 10,000, and that's why it becomes so intense, you know, so strong. And so that's what we need to do all the time. We give and forget, and we got to live for others, and then your blessed ancestor can start to come back in to you. Then after a day, you feel it's all over, is okay now. This is what it's like when you drink and take drugs. Basically, Father said it's like putting your hat, it's like putting your head off at the top, and all this negativity just steps straight in you. This is quite an interesting thing, because if you're addicted to something, either it's drugs or alcohol or something else, you take that with you into the spirit world. You don't leave it on the earth. So it means if you are so, you're stealing money to try to get drugs, and you feel really bad and you don't know what to do, and many people say, oh my gosh, I can't live on this earth anymore, I'll commit suicide. When they do that, they go into the spirit world, but they're so focused on themselves because of the drug, you know, this desire, that if you stand in front of someone, they can't see you at all. They can't see you. And it's like in that movie, What Dreams May Come. I'm sure you've all saw that one. The person goes down to the level where his wife committed suicide, and he stood in front of her and she couldn't see him at all because she's only looking backwards into herself. And so this addiction of any sort makes you not look outward but look inward. And so very difficult to witness to these people. It's very difficult to bring that person out of that realm. In a way, this is why it's known as being evil or sinful to kill yourself, because it's very difficult to save a person, because in the spirit world they can't see or ask advice, so it's very, very difficult. And so best thing is to do is not to get addicted in the first place, and this is these ones are more focused, I think, more to second gen, not because of the people here are doing anything like that. Of course, in Italy, people have wine, you know, with their meal, so this is a bit different. I'm talking about real strong addiction. But for many of the universities today, they have all these drinking sessions and everything. So for second gen to be very, very protective of this, try not to get sucked into all of these different things. And also for children, if second gen have children, try to give them reasons not to stay overnight with other people they know. Got to be very selective, lest you end up, your children to become corrupt very quickly. Yeah? So we have to be very careful not to allow this to happen, lest you just lose your children, not just physically, spiritually too. This is what it's like, drunk people, how they look at each other. This is what they see. You know, many times you see very heavily alcoholic people sat together, and they might fall over and start talking to the foot of the person here. You know, because they can see a face looking out of it. Everything is not good. So, you know, we have to just be very clear. It's not for the first gen, but it's more for the second gen, really. This is why I like talking to the second gen a lot, because it's quite, it's much more impact on these things. Agreed, if you like things too much, your eyes are big. These are small compared to some people's eyes in the spirit world, and it's because they're greedy. They only focused on clothes or food. This is it. I must do everything to own this. And so your eyes are huge in the spirit world, you know. Same with if you're a little bit of a person who lies. You have like different animals, even in certain twilight times in the day, maybe around 6, if it's like half light. If you walk through the city, you look at people and you can see different animal faces in people. Usually people can, even Petra could, you know, it's like shows what's coming out. So this is an angel. Petra said, draw a nice happy angel, so I did. So there we go, because some are quite serious. They're all different colors, which represent the ideal of the aura color. So that if you need support from a certain characteristic coming to you, then it blends. As I said with Alan, he had a blue angel stood there, and blue is representing, is like purity, is clear mind, is education, is many things. Maybe if you need it for another reason, another different one will come. But usually they're not a part of any lineage at all. They just come to support, you know. In the National Messiah ones, we had 4 angels, each to support the couple. We were given those at the time, but they don't work with us so much now because we have blessed ancestors. But if you're in more of a central role about doing something which is quite dynamic and specific, then they will come in support. This is also why one of the questions I ask people is what position do they have in the movement? Because that determines what kind of spirit you get supported by, which is very different from what you would normally have. So a tree of blessing, there's a trinity there, and this is like a pure energy. When you go up onto the top to pray, you get a lot of support because there's a trinity there, angels. This is my first experience of meeting an angel. I was walking up and down this path here. This is when it was tense in the past, and I saw this big angel. It comes maybe up to here, quite tall, and I thought, wow, he looks all orange color. So I thought, whose team is he on? I've never seen him before, and so I asked, I said hello, and he just said hello, and I thought, ooh, and I better just continue walking on in case he asked me to do something. So I just wandered up. But that was my first experience with seeing an angel after doing the Ansu sessions. We had 70 minutes, 4 times a day, for 40 days, and a 7-day fast near the end, as we all know. And that's when I became open to see, instead of just experience the atmospheres. I could literally see more clear. And it gets clearer all the time as I go through life. That was up by the water of life. That was giving some herbs in there, and people that had certain things with them, they felt good after. They felt as if they were healed. It's to do with the herbs that the angels were putting in the pot you had. It's just plain water. So it's more your attitude, not so much the water itself, that's the healer. This is again, this is how angels help. So they help in that way, gather up different things. Blessed ancestors. This is also the kind of energy I was describing to you. This is my daughter's husband, Robert. Robert Haynes, if anybody knows William Haynes, is his first son. And he was just coming down in the morning. And this one shows better how it works. This is my daughter, Christabel, and him. And there's an energy that blends together, which comes down. And one was coming down from my wife. This kind of angel is the one that's with Alan there, this kind of color. And these are other ancestors stood around here. So, yeah. So is almost very likely that the couples in the origins here have this happening to them. Yeah. If I would go into your spirit, I'd probably discover this one. Yeah, you're blended together. The root of your origin starts in one place, but then you blend. So the more you unite, the more you harmonize spiritually. Yeah. Same with the two. It's always nice to see. Generally second generation. With first generation, there wasn't so much of the ancestral liberations and blessings. So it means that you had your own vertical connection more. If you're a couple, it depends on how well you get on together. A lot of the differences between the first and the second generation is second generation are more friends. They're more friendship between them. Whereas first generation were more pioneers. So they were more individual fighters for God. Whereas if you take a second gen and you ask, say, your son or daughter, are you going to this workshop? They say, is Joe going? And you would say, yeah, I'm going. So it was more based on friendship. Or is so-and-so going? So it's a different relationship to the spirit world they have than what we have. Ours is much more, we're kind of two individual people living together, and then slowly we grow to blend together. But most of the problems people have is that first generation have, is they don't know how to relate together because they were born to and they had so many influences from single ancestors, like monks and nuns that came, and brought us to the movement. Many of the time, if I asked many of us here, first generation, why did you join? You probably wouldn't know. You still don't know, really. Yeah. And if you ask, do you still have hope in our movement? You say, yes. And I say, why? And you still don't know. You just know. You know it's going to work. And this is a kind of faith and passion we had as we were monks and nuns. Not when we were monks and nuns. Our ancestors brought us in knowing, absolutely. That's right. And so we have this doggedness about us. Absolutely true, but don't ask me why. Yeah. And so this is the difference between the first and second gen. Second gen depend on the parents. They're the Messiah for the children. But we have our ancestors and their history. That's what brought us in. So it's a different connection. So the influence spirits can have on your mood and their influence on your environment, which influences how others see and understand you. So many spirits walking around. I don't see any random spirits in the center here, which is a good thing. Sometimes these spirits, though, can blend. They can come into your life and sit in you. They can just stand in you, and suddenly your whole attitude changes, and you don't know why. It's the same. If you're very inspired now, when you leave the center, you might walk down a street and pass by just a small group of people, and just when you pass them, suddenly your whole spirit's changed. Maybe what you were inspired about, you suddenly can't remember by the time you get home. And this is why we're influenced by spirits around us a lot. This is also a grandmother coming back to the grandson or daughter. And children are quite open. You see the babies looking around, staring at the sky, but they're actually seeing kind of spirits around. But then as they grow older, they become more self-aware. And that self-awareness blocks them. It makes their attitude and outlook more narrow, and then spirit can't work with them so well. This is the whole purpose of doing fasting and prayer and all these kind of conditions, is to bring you to a point where you become very open-minded. And then you find that God can come and inspire you or answer certain questions. But you need to make that base first, whereas younger children already have it. This is just a lost spirit. Just got knocked down one time, just can't find his way. There is a limbo area where they don't know the direction to go. And because they're so confused, it's difficult for an ancestor to come and guide them. But eventually they find a way. This is someone also that doesn't know where that person is, don't know what the area, don't know how long she's been there, don't know what to do, don't know how to get out. This is like one of these realms I'm talking about. You could end up in. Not as dark as this. It may just look like the same place like this. But there's no door anywhere. When you go into the outside, you can't think, if I go through that door, I'm in another realm. Everything just looks like it does here. There's like no escape. Because everything has to manifest from a different realm. There is no direct door into another realm. You have to have a certain level. And so when we would go witnessing to people, I or us would suddenly just appear in front of someone, and ask them, would they like to come? And by them saying, yes, that's a great idea, they would step into me, and I would be able to take them out of that realm into another one. That's how they get out. So if they don't know you, or they've never heard of principle or father or anything, they can't leave. There's nothing. You need some form of experience rather than what you have. That's why also when Father said, all you have to do really, if you're desperate, is just pick up my picture and show it like this to everyone. Say, look, remember this face. And then put it away and then go home. Because when all these people go in the spirit world, you'll just stand in front of these people in these realms and say, remember this face? And they say, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think you said he was a Messiah or something strange. Yeah, that's right, yeah. Do you want to come and find out more? Yeah, okay then. And then they can come. So, you know, whatever you do is not a wasted effort, even though it feels not good because we have goals, you know, we're trying to fulfill certain goals. But never feel as if you're a failure. You're not a failure. You know, this is a spirit going to a workshop. Yeah, she got nothing in the case. There's nothing in there. It's just a status. It's an ideal that I own something, and I can't just walk there with nothing, you know. So she got no shoes, but she got a case and she got a coat. It's not raining, but you see this person, because of her background, she couldn't ask for anything and change anything because her attitude wasn't so good. You know, she may have been just an average person, bit selfish, going to a job, not really doing any volunteer work, just living just for yourself. So you just end up being only who you are with nothing there. Not a negative or a really bad person, but didn't know how to do that. So couldn't gain anything. So she lived with people looking in the same way, you know. So teaching the truth, very much energy comes out of all of our books and energy. People are affected by. We study all the time, and sometimes it can be very much the same feeling. You know, you read and think, oh, well, it's the same thing again. But we've got to create good habits. That's the problem. We've been living with either no habits or very bad habits. So is to create a habit. That's why we read the things over and over again. And our ancestors can also study with us. You see, we lived in the time of the Messiah. Our ancestors never lived in the time of this Messiah. So many of them take notes when you're studying. And you find that the time, if you start reading a passage and you're quite awake, great, you know, that means all your ancestors and people around you unite with the ideal. But as soon as you start reading and then start going kind of asleep like this, that's the bit where they're all arguing about it. They're taking your energy to try to figure out this part. And so you start and you go, oh, and you go back to the beginning, read again, and you read again, and whoa. And so that's where they're struggling, yeah. And then you might get to the end, and suddenly you're wide awake, and then you carry on reading. Very interesting, because your energy is being used for them to change. And that's the same with a mediator. So if I'm a person who goes into a person's spirit, I see your spirit and the ancestors, but I'm using my energy to decipher, to work out what I'm seeing. And that's very tiring for the physical body, you know. Whereas Daimonim, she's in the spirit world already. So when she goes looking for ancestors, she don't use that kind of energy. So for people really who are in this position, you know, like say Alan, who's taking maybe responsibility for a certain thing, me also taking responsibility for a different thing, it can be quite dangerous if you're not able to understand what's going on with you. You know, many who heard that I do what I do from Chompion, they said, oh, it's too dangerous, you shouldn't do that. But I'm trying to use this now, which protects me, so I don't need to go in so much. But because we're leading up to 2020, the spirit world's going a bit wild, and it's really dangerous going into people's spirit now. It's much easier 10 years ago. Yeah. Now I try not to do those kind of deep, heavy spiritual readings. I feel like a spiritual psychologist for a lot of people, and it's not easy. Yeah. So, So Father, he's our mentor for all of us, and this is more for outside people now. He received, and he likes to talk, teach, and so do we. When we feel inspired about something, we would love to share it with others. So he's our inspiration. But you attract. I mean, Petra's German, you know, and she attracts many Vikings and different things from here. And wow, she was very much like a warrior, very strong, very strong spiritually. And I felt that spear many a time. Yeah. And very dynamic. Yeah. Also the same one again where she's teaching, but this is how we're influenced. This is also, never worry when you are trying to educate people, because you don't need to have the value of being perfect or really knowledgeable when you're teaching or trying to educate someone. As soon as you start doing it the best you can, using principle, God will send to you inspirational spirits. These are gold. They're not people, but they're able to relate to you with all the knowledge of anything you desire. And of course, at that time, of course, we had an angel, but you may have blessed ancestors instead, and all this information. And then you end up explaining to your guest or whatever things which they think, I was only thinking about that last night. I just didn't know. And you just explained it all to them, and you had no idea who they are and what education they need, but you always give the right information. So always trust yourself. And the problem that ancestors have is that we are sometimes too scared or too timid to talk to others. That's their problem. Not that the knowledge is no good. You will get all the knowledge you need, but sometimes we don't have the courage to talk, even though there's maybe somebody new you just want to avoid, because you don't. It's like the negative spirit tries to make a wall between you and the guest, or somebody outside. You see, oh, that's a nice, maybe I'll talk, and then suddenly you feel, oh, maybe I can't do it, or maybe I'm not enough, maybe I'm not sure. And this is the problem the negative or positive spirits have. Not so much the knowledge, that will come to you as you do it. So we just have to be courageous and just do, which is very difficult. Champion, of course, we know. And again, there. And I'm sure maybe we're in there somewhere. We never know on one of the days when we're doing it. Now, searching for your ancestors. Now, searching out for your ancestors, we don't do. Daimonim does this. So, where does she go searching for your ancestors when you write to say, I want to liberate or bless another 7? Right, that's her there. I always show people publicly what she looks like, so that in the spirit world I can say, we know this face, and they say, oh yeah, that's right, that's Champion, yeah. And then I can invite them back. So, her, along with blessed ancestors, will go searching. And where do they go? They go into your spirit. So if you ask to liberate another 7 generations, she will go into you. She will go into you, the person who asked. And so within each of these little realms, there's different sections of blessed, good, ancestors, religious-minded people, resentful spirits, is all in there. So she goes searching in there. And so she might find this person in your spirit, yeah? and bring them out like that. Now this spirit might be causing you actually a problem. Maybe you're one of these depressive people who always just sits on a chair and says, life, God, can't wait till it's over. Yeah? Why do you think like that? You ask them, why do you actually think like that? And they say, I've got no idea. My parents aren't depressive, I'm just like this. And that person's being influenced by this kind of spirit. So once that person's been brought out, you feel different. You actually feel different. But you still have the habit of sitting down saying, I feel so depressed. And then you say, come on, let's do something. And then if that person can inspire you over about a week or 2 or 3, you will forget what it was like to be, right. And because that spirit's gone. So you actually can change and think better, which is really good. And that's why liberation and blessing is quite important for our own spiritual development, as well as that person. That person will go to a workshop, yeah, and be liberating herself, and then she gets blessed. Maybe she was married before she died, and she can get reunited, and so then she ends up in Champion with everybody else in a very positive way. So everybody wins. It's really a nice thing. This is also how we're influenced by different I just showed the same spirits again. They come through a doorway. There is a doorway that appears in the spirit world. If you aim, is set up by the battery run out. My battery's run out. Sorry, everybody. My mic, yeah. I'll let the technician do his thing. You do MOT on it. Some coffee here, some life energy. Just drying up here. I'm just going into my little cocktail room here. Mini Starbucks over here. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's right. So it goes. They go through this this doorway. Is a part of the arrangement in the spirit world, connecting to the Champion Providence, and so all the spirits aim for that door. Then they go through, and they come into a similar building to what we know in Champion, and they all gather up. So there are situations where there's like huge long ships that sail slowly. They slide, really, they feel like they're sliding slowly into the never-ending depth of the spirit world. And on those boats are several ancestors, maybe a group, maybe my parents and my Petra's parents, along with other aunts, uncles and cousins, great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers. They're all kind of one big thing, and we all go out maybe looking for certain people. And so we sail. So there could be hundreds of ancestors on this boat, slowly going there. And they will call out names. They will call out names, like a certain name. Or connected to my name, Hill Clan. And then, because we don't know the names of the ancestors, certainly don't know. I only know my great-grandfathers, possibly, if I can still get it. But anyway, further back, I have no idea. So I don't know. But the blood lineage is there. And that becomes very, very apparent, very strong in the spirit world. Your lineage line becomes the kind of marker for who you're connected to. So when that's called out, anybody from that line around that time, they say yes, and then when that is heard through the providence, they can be removed and brought to the boat, and there's a table. It's quite simple, really. It's quite an interesting thing. There's a table there with a big cup on there, right? And they appear on there. And they say, "Oh, thank you very much for finding me. Wow." And usually the first question they ask, have you seen my husband? Or have you seen my wife? Or have you seen my children? Yeah? And usually at the time that person's found, the other one, the counterpart's been found at the same time. So if the wife's been found, then the husband's also on another boat somewhere, because they're going to be re-blessed. So you can't just find one of them. And you say, yes, yeah, we found. Yeah, oh, and you never believe how grateful they will be to each one of us for liberating them. Oh, my God. You'll be crying in your tears, but because they will absolutely do anything for you. They've been in these places for centuries, and they could not get out, and they don't know where their loved ones are. They're totally alone. It's till death do you part. And only through the Messiah can reunion and liberation take place. This is why there's this only one realm that has a couple realm. You can be reunited. So they are so overwhelming. And then you can say, okay, well, it's nice to have you here. Would you like a drink of something? And you say, would you like a coffee? They say, coffee? What's coffee? Never heard of it. Yeah. And you say, well, do you like a beer then? Yeah, beer. That's a good idea. Yeah, have a beer. And then and as soon as you say, and they say, yeah, that's good, it starts to fill up with beer. And it's a big, one of these great big wooden things, so they're drinking it down. They put it down, it fills up again. It don't empty, and it just stays there. you know, and you put a blanket around them, then you sail back slowly with many found, you know, ancestors. And then they go into the workshop. This is where they're all being gathered up in that building when we come off the ship or off the train or off the boat. So many different ways. It's more symbolic to go there. And then they all formed a line here, all these found ancestors, they all kind of gather. And then you've got an angel just making the line to make sure they don't all wander off and go off somewhere. So keep them all in a bit of a line. And then they go up to the tree of blessing. And then from there, they go to the spiritual side of Champyong. Is basically happening in the same place as the physical one, but it's the spiritual aspect they're going into now. And then this is how the education. It's still marble. It's very similar to how the marble looks in Champyong, but it's more of a spiritual thing. These are the relatives it went to find, these ancestors. These come from the Egyptian time. These are all kind of relatives, and these were aunts, uncles, maybe, and people just going searching on the boat and found them and brought them and gave them the education. This is an angel who's educating as well, teaching them. And as we know, most of the education now isn't done verbally. It's done on big screens, like we know. They're huge, huge screens. And the actors are actually acting out all the history of the fall of man and all the other kind of examples. But they're done by, the actors are the real people from the history. Yeah. So you will really see Noah on his boat, and what really happened. Same with Adam and Eve. They've been liberated, but unfortunately they have to demonstrate what they always did to cause the problem. So they've been forgiven for doing it, but they still got the job of explaining it, showing it. So this is how education, this is why you can go from a very low level, from a long distance away, and then get raised up very high. Yeah. But each level is different. So when you go out to get searched for, you may find some in this age, say the 6th century, some in the 9th, some in the 12th, some in the 1st. And when you bring them all back together, they can actually relate to each other. Yeah.
Does Jesus have the crucifixion 1,000 times again?
No, I don't think so, because he's a good guy. Yeah, I don't think so. I think maybe if a person's in a position to know that they can educate and completely transform the people that are being brought back, I don't think he will actually mind doing that, you know, but he doesn't feel the pain of it. It would just be more the people that are looking at the picture, they also didn't feel the pain of his death, and by him appearing on there, also he won't have the pain of it, but it might be just a quick expression of it, you know, but then it all falls into their mind, because there's no suffering like that in the spirit world. It's just to show more the outcome, how it should have been and what the outcome is. So it's not literally how it's done, but what God's plan originally was for it. So it will be narrated, and probably some of our educators there will say, this is what happened, but this is what should have happened, you know. So because it's an educational place. So that becomes education, and then people then come up onto a similar level over time where they can start to work together more. They get change from these different times in history, so they can all kind of harmonize together, and then they get liberated in blessing. And so after finishing the workshop, your ancestors go to a waiting room. From there, they go through the holy wine and blessing ceremony to become reunited as blessed couples. They are then ready to return home to their descendants for welcome home celebration. Now, this is removing resentful spirits. Now, this is different from looking for ancestors. So Daimonim does that. She goes looking, like I explained, with other people they want to help. Now this is removing. So this is where we take part ourselves. You can't. Nobody else can do this for you to liberate resentful spirits. You have to take part yourself. So you take part in some of these activities. The drum is a bit like jungle drums. It drives the spirit world crazy. They want to get away from this noise. It's something that draws out negative energy from your spirit. And this guy, he's playing there, boom, boom, like we all know, and we think, my gosh, it's like constant like this. And then what happens is spirits start sticking their heads out of you, saying, what the hell is that noise? My God, switch it off. I don't want to listen to it anymore. And then an angel might come along and grab him by the neck and pull him out, like that. And as soon as he's out, they're not allowed to go back in you. That's one of the rules. Yeah? If you're clapping, you've got such a strong habit around you of different feelings and things that is almost like concrete around you. Your habit, your attitude, over the generations, it almost becomes solidified, solid. And so by doing this condition of hitting, you break the concrete and allow negative energy to come through you out. That's the purpose of it. And the singing, we sing the same song all the time, but the main reason is so that you can drown out all the complaints of the negative spirit world of saying, shut up and do all this, and sing louder. You sing louder to drown them out so you don't hear them. Yeah? Because if you don't sing, sometimes you can start feeling quite negative. Why am I doing this actually? What is that? And you start thinking about it too much, So you sing so that you don't get affected so much. That's what that is. So then Daimonim goes around the origins and ushers out negative energy coming out of you. So if she sees lots of energy coming out to someone, she'll stand in front of them and either pull them out or usher them around. And she goes into this same area within your spirit to do that. And this is what they look like. There's some coming out of people here. She would gather them up and they go down. And this is a wall, just like this wall here. A door opens up in the front and they go through and sign up for 100 days and so on. And so they all aim to go there. This is... these are 3 slaves. They were Negroes. They died together. They're chained on the neck here. And so they went into a brother who was an American brother, and must have been one of his ancestors going way back, was a slave person who brought slaves to Britain, and they died probably on the boat. And so they all jumped out of this brother in one go. And I could see all this, and I could hear their bare feet on the floor land. And they looked around. And saw this doorway. And they run down there, signed up, went round the corner, and then you could hear this click, click. It's like they were out of their chains for the first time, for generations. And so they're liberated and blessed now. Yeah, so... this brother maybe was experiencing incredible guilt all his life and didn't know why. But it's all to do with ancestors. What the ancestors did to other people get trapped in us. Yeah. And so this is one spirit coming out of one person. The head comes out first, look around, then steps out, and then forms into a spirit and then walks off. Saying this was one coming out of my wife's stomach. She had problems. And it has no legs at this time, because it never needed them. It was been in there for centuries. But this angel at that time, because it was quite not so many blessed ancestors when we were doing it, he came and just tapped it like that. And it went very hard onto the floor. And then over a short time, it began to form legs again. Legs. And then it walked off to the front of the hall and signed for 100 days. The same. This is many times they're trapped. It's like a honeycomb in the back of your back. If you have a problem somewhere, you will probably find there's like a honeycomb with different spirits, negative spirits in that particular area. And so this is why they focus. They say you've got a problem with your arm, you just focus on your arm and clap there, and you knock out the spores from that particular area. And many times after the end of that particular Ansu session, there's lots of spirits hanging out of people, so they go to the tree of love by the coffee shop and they continue. You see them after doing this and just knocking off the rest of them. Because you can do Ansu in any part of the campus and it still has the same effect. Same from the leg there. These are kind of the pictures Damien used on some of the workshops, this one and the other one. It just shows more easier for people to understand. My wife, she had 12 sessions with Damien, and if you can visualize one of those great big plants, it's more of a tropical plant. It's quite a huge, it looks like a pod, you know, and when you hit it, all the spores get like a poof, like that, and they all fly out. And this is what it's like when you're hitting yourself, or lots of spores fly out. It looks like tar, that stuff they make the road with, that black, smelly, hard tar. It sets hard on the ground. This is what it looks like, oil, like dark oil, which turns then into people. There's the dimension is completely different, because we got like one of the questions is, how many resentful spirits do you have in your body? Well, I can say, how many cells do you have in your body? You know, because when you're the blueprint you have that you're born with has all the inherited good and bad things in the cells. So you can get rid of thousands, you know, in one session, because they're all the size of micro size, but when they're coming out of you, they change into their proper size. So this is the thing, the reality. So you have millions in you. Yeah, Damien said it's just the tip of the iceberg. What's under the water is absolutely massive. But when you finish doing the liberations of ancestors now, I believe anyway that the 430, isn't it? So I think it's 430 we're trying to get to. They will then start to go and search for the rest. I don't think we need to do that, as far as I know. So there's enough there to begin to search more, and then I can believe the side lineages will start to be done, but they will do that from the spirit world anyway. I think so. So those negative spirits, they go in and they sign up for the 100 days, but they meet down at the jetty where the river is down there, the lake, and then they go by ship. This is just a computer image of a ship, but it's a similar kind of thing. And negative spirits followed by really high level spirits go down, they go in there, and they also go through another symbolic doorway, entering into Champyong, going through the same program, slightly different maybe for negative spirits rather than ancestors, a slightly different program, but very similar process. These are just the resentful spirits that purified themselves like the other ones. Then they go and get blessed. Then we have the welcome home ceremony. Not for resentful spirits, we don't welcome them home. They're blessed, but maybe they go to their own homes. They can come back with you. I don't mind having ones with them. But this is the welcome home ancestors. And we all, they gather up there. They also put little gifts under the altar. Yeah. And this is the side lineages, the collateral, the different people from aunts, uncles, and so on. And these are the meals. different kinds of meals, of course. Usually it's 4 plates because of the 4 lineages. And I've got, this is how they eat. There's a big group of them, and each bend down and pick up a plate of food, and the plate comes up into their hand, but the solid plate is still on the table. And they can taste the food. It's amazing. I think this is that concept of feed the 5,000 that Jesus had with the loaves and fishes. It's the same kind of way. And so I could hear them talking together. This one's smelling something, saying, "What is this? This is a strawberry. What's a strawberry? I've never had one before." You know, because it goes back through all the different lineage time. I'm coming to the end very soon. So that's all right. Keep strong till the end. This is True Parents, is a celebration. But of course, we have celebrations that are brought together, which is fine. It's just more of a celebration. But these are ancestors from the city. It isn't from us. These are representatives of the ancestors. When you do have any ceremonies, you can guarantee that you have a lot of ancestors with you on that time, even though you may feel alone, just yourself. And you may have representatives from the city, like these, coming in, supporting you. This is another one where these are the real people at the end. We're all celebrating their holy day. And then this table suddenly appeared, and with all your ancestors sat there eating coffee and cake and all different stuff, and the angels were serving teas and coffees. They were just walking up and down like this. And that's when Father said you can have many of these banquets and celebrations and then just click your finger and it's all washed up. It's all gone like that. That's the kind of food we want. Yeah. No, well, you imagine washing up for that long? Yeah, my gosh. It's like a whole week's work. So Honda K, what it is a reading each day. John, this is also for outside people. It's not really for us. We know what that is really. But any kind of book really which has Father's words in, it's very inspiring. It's like it can be spiritual food for many people. But like I say, if you repeat all the time, it can become a little bit the same. But it has a value of trying to form habit forming. So it's good habits to have. That is the book there. So we were studying, and a big, almost like auditorium opened, and these were ancestors here. This isn't here. This is an empty room. We're sat in an empty room here, but this suddenly appeared in front of me with all these ancestors sat just learning, and they're still learning about principle. You know, they've only heard it and studied it. They've never lived it very much. So they need as much guidance as they can get. Same here, ancestors studying and being guided. This is where we had that old idea where we flick open a book and decide what we're going to do today. This is what we used to do in a long time, in the 70s and 80s. Like your inspiration for the day. So you got like The World in Eye or one of these little books, and we opened it up and we spinned it and then said, bunk. Looked at it, that's what I'm doing today. And it's usually a good guide. But on this, my daughter was doing it, and she did it, and she put her hand, she opened it. I said, try this if you want to know what to try and do today. So she had to go, and she put her finger like that, and I could see one of these spirits hold her hand and move it there. So that was very interesting to see. So we're guided very much when we do something like that, if we ask for God's guidance and then just spread through a book quickly and put your finger, this is how we get the right kind of guidance for the day. There's intervention with some spirit helping us, or ancestor. So this is an ancestor making notes of all the information being spoke about. You see, when ancestors look to us, they don't see us like I'm seeing you or you're seeing me. They're looking through a frosted glass. It's like frosted here. And so they can see people sat behind, but they don't know who they are really. So your ancestors are on this side, and how they work with you, how they can connect to you, is if you do some act of living for others or caring or anything in a principled way, your spirit suddenly becomes brighter. And so they can see this bright energy, and they know where you are. And so they can blend into you. So this is why we need some form of life of faith or general lifestyle that we try and do every day. And that allows them to be able to find us and keep with us. If not, our spirit gets dull, bit dark, and then they can't connect to you very well. They don't know where you are. You get lost in the crowd. So that's why even if you've got a lot of ancestors, if you don't keep some form of standard, they can't, no matter how many you got, they just still can't find you. So it ends up then you end up attracting different kinds of negative spirit around you, which separates even more. So practicing the principle in lifestyle, we live good actions. As I said, this is more for outside people, what prayer is. Basically to be aware of your surroundings, people around you. That's real prayer, really. You know, very fundamental. Because you're always then open to offer, to open the door, make the sandwich, wash up, whatever is there, is a way of service. And then of course you've got the concentrated prayer energy, where you do it as a group and you can focus. And that's a different level. But basic prayer and the holy ground, the holy candle, holy soul, all supports the energy. Even having a marble vase in your room, which you I think have in many centers, has a strong effect. It has a strong effect. I usually feel a lot of energy coming out of these vases, and it does clear the atmosphere, or keep the atmosphere clear. Maybe it's better. So that's that. Candle, holy salt. You feel the energy from the salt. When you pray, this is very much like, you pray for people. People feel it all around the world. They just don't know you're doing it, but it's a collective energy. And many people feel very supported, but they don't know why on that day. And this is the reason. It's my daughter praying for some country, some peace. Yeah, so that's very effective. Also prayer, like it did before. You can start speaking in different tongues and languages if you're really into these books in prayer. You suddenly get so many inspirations coming down through you. Also, this is also spirits coming through you. Same there. And of course there. So heaven and hell. Right, they're both tricky, right? You go up there, can't go up. Yeah, so difficult to control going down. So we have the choice which way we're going, really. And so we're connected to the world. We're absolutely one with the world. We depend on this world, really. And it is an expression. We are an expression of the world, and the world's an expression of us. So we got to look after that. It's in our hands. So the key is the principle. And so have a go. So is it the end, or is it just the beginning? And that's the end. That's it.
Question.
Is it the end? No, it's not, is it? Go on.
What happens to all the people who are separated from this knowledge and die?
Who don't know anything? When you're in the spirit world, you don't notice so much that you have anything evil with you. You're basically you're carrying. Like if I would say to you, do you think you have evil spirit in you now, yeah? or good ones? You probably don't know. Yeah, nor do I. We don't know what level we're on really. Only when you pray a lot and empty yourself, you suddenly realize that you can feel something better than you. And so it brings you up to that level. So when they're in the spirit world, they're put into a realm where everybody is similar to them, but they're content. But they know there's something missing, just like people do when they're searching. Nobody's really content with their life. They always want to try and do something with it. And so they have this unsettled feeling, but they don't suddenly see negative or positive. it can go, if it's a general person who's not bad, not particularly good, they go into this middle realm. So they feel comfortable, but they're open to change. And so you can witness in the middle realm, and you can find some people who are open to the idea of having a go, change. So no, they don't feel all the negative at all. Only when they start doing liberation, they will suddenly see all that stuff coming out of them. It's very subtle how negative things influence you. You don't realize it's something negative. You think it's just old habit of way of thinking, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I get this question. A very simple answer, really, believe it or not, is that when we need to be an example for our children. In the spirit world, you don't have children. So we're doing everything on the earth here so that we can be an influence and an example for our own children, for the people around us, right? And that allows them to adopt something from this, from the good realm. So this is it, really. Because when you pass into the spirit world, you go into your particular realm, or Chono Guk realm, but you don't have any children to influence anymore. So we're trying to leave behind in the physical world a good standard. So it's impossible to clear up everything because it goes back too far. But we can have a certain symbolic number, which is 210 or 420 ancestors. That makes a strong base on the physical world to influence your relatives and all the people around you. And that's why we're trying to do it here. Yeah? You can. Yeah, we're able to apologize. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. No, this is more. If you have somebody who shoots somebody, if they're in the army, just say somebody in the army. Now, this person who's in the army isn't a bad person. He's just joined the army because maybe he was asked to join, and he has to fight. And if he doesn't fight, he may go to prison. Or if he doesn't kill the enemy, he may get shot as a deserter. So he's forced to kill. But that doesn't change the fact that that person he shot is going to be resentful to him. Right? So in the spirit world, I can go and maybe find that situation, or when I'm clapping, he comes out of me, he goes off to the workshop, and then he comes back, and then we can talk, go for coffee and cake. We just sit down, and I can explain, this was my situation. I'm very, very sorry that I shot you. It's more difficult because that person doesn't have a connection to you. If they do, you can. If they know, if it's like a brother or sister, you get separated when it death, yeah? And then you can try and go and find your sister or brother. Yeah, that's more difficult. Because there's no connection to you. It's a bit like me going out the door and seeing anyone and saying, I'm very, very sorry. I'm very sorry for what... And they say, well, who are you, actually? There has to be some connection. And they also have to know it was you that did it. Because if not, they won't understand what you're apologizing for. But that can still happen in the spirit world. You can grow and you can change. Yeah? But you need to have some base to do that. Here, you don't need that base. The only base you need in this world is if you want to decide to try and have a go and change and apologize to someone, you have to make that strong effort. But in the spirit world, you're trapped unless there's a reason that they can think of something higher. Is that okay? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I received a lot of stress and hardship in my job.
Yeah.
And then last month, in 2018, in December, I decided to hit them back by giving out a blessing. And I blessed in my job maybe 20 or more people.
Hmm.
And my question is, am I supposed to show them a picture of two parents and say to them, two parents, God took away your original sin, using me as
A guide or a spirit, yeah.
take away your original sin, and please remember this picture,
Hmm.
or should I just let it go by?
I think you can just let it go by, because what's the likelihood of them changing how they are now based on this new information you're giving them? No matter how much you tell them, they still won't react in a way. They won't suddenly drop their job and join. They would just still continue. But as long as they have that, if you are able to tell them something more and you know they're open to the idea and won't criticize you, then please say as much as you can. But if not, because they took the wine, they needed to take that wine or holy nectar on trust. Because nobody just drinks something. They want to know why.
Drink the wine. We just gave them Christmas cookies.
Ah.
They were
Oh yeah,
wine.
Christmas cookies. Yeah. Well, I think it's part of the solution. I don't think it would have a huge impact, but you can, when you visit these people, say in the future, in the spirit world, you can say, remember taking this sweet. And you had this good relationship with them at that time, and that means something. And based on the personality, and they know you, they trust you, that you can invite them. It's the same kind of connect. You just need some connection through something. Yeah, so it's good. Okay?
Sollen wir jetzt vielleicht die Mittagsscheibe make the lunch break now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Would you then, after lunch break,
I start.
would you start with individual?
That's right. Yeah, because I finished the talk now,
Okay.
which was good, because in most places I still continue after lunch. Yeah, yeah, fine. Yeah. So I'll just change over things now while everybody goes for lunch and set it up. And then if there is something like sausage or something or other, then bring it in and I'll sit. Only if it's like a meaty thing.
Would you
I spoke about this before.
start the individuals getting
I'll speak to you after. I would start it in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, if people are willing. They can still be eating, and when it's their turn, they can bring in their lunch with them.
Okay.
But you don't need to stay in there all day eating your lunch. After you can come on out. But I want to start it. Makes it easier. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.